and welcome to another episode of Careers Night, the podcast where we ask our guests, what's your job and how did you get it? My name is Chris Potts, and today I am joined by Todd Goldstein. Today's conversation is one that was truly fascinating to me. Having never considered myself to be anything more than an average, if that sort of sporting capability, I was never in the position to honestly consider and think about what it would take to become a professional sports person. Today, I invite you to join the conversation where Todd shares his journey into AFL, the pressure placed on new entrants into the AFL these days, how clubs are looking at academic discipline as a selection criteria, as well as raw sporting ability, as well as the plans that he is currently making and has been on a journey for a number of years for a post-AFL career. So let's throw ourselves into the conversation. Welcome, Todd, and let's get started by telling us what's your job.
Yep, so I play AFL for the North Melbourne Kangaroos. Been here for, I think, 15 years.
And you were just saying how that makes you one of the senior players at the club.
Yeah, at 32, I think I'm the oldest by about a year or two now. And there's a lot more players under the age of 25 now than there are over 25. So I've definitely feel my age.
Yeah, it's obviously a career that you're doing that thousands of people aspire to do, and I guess tens of thousands aspire to get there, and hundreds make it. I think personally, for me, it's going to be really interesting understanding that journey that you took to get there. And you and I went to the same school, so I have some knowledge of the story as to how you got there. But if we dial the clock right back to school days, I don't know, year 9 and 10, that sort of era where a majority of our listeners are going to be coming from, what did you want to be back then?
Yeah, well, my dream was to go to the NBA. I was playing quite a lot of basketball. It had sort of, by probably around year 10 was when my basketball started to really take off, and I think my coordination started to catch up with my height a little bit. So that was my dream, was to go to college, and everything I was doing really was to set that up. You know, I think in the background I sort of wanted to do physiotherapy as well, but you know, I think that was something that was really not a big focus. For me, it was all about the weekends and getting ready to play and go to the college and then hopefully play NBA. That was my whole dream.
And how did that play out for you during the week? Like, obviously the focus on the weekends is sport and excelling there. Monday to Friday, you've still got to go to school like every other 15, 16-year-old. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so it was challenging. I mean, I was a fairly dedicated student. My mum was very much on my back to making sure that I was getting my homework completed and things like that. And year 9 and 10, I think I was probably the pinnacle of my schooling. So I was doing okay at that. But it was very full on because I was pretty much training basketball every single night. And then obviously with school sport that we had to do as well. Was very, very busy for me, and I think eventually started to take a toll, and something had to give way. And you know, I think I probably learnt over the last 15 years that unfortunately school, by the time I got to year 11 and 12, went away a little bit, and I probably wish I had focused a little bit more in those last few years.
Why is that? What's playing out now for you that means that you?
I think for me, it's you get told it, and you always hear people say, you know, make sure you focus on school because your sport's not going to be around forever. And I think for me now, realizing I'm in a very lucky, a very privileged position that I've played football for 15 years, but for the majority of people, that's not the case. I think when I got drafted, I think the reality was that your average career length was about 3.6 years. And that was taking into account the Brent Harveys, the Glenn Archers that played for nearly 20. So there was a lot of players that were bouncing in and then bouncing out of the system. And for a lot of us, with sport being our whole focus, a lot of players, people don't have a lot to fall back on when that doesn't. And I think, you know, probably the realization going through, you know, a lot of different courses that I've tried and different things I've done, that, you know, if I had have really focused on what I'd do outside of sport, I think it would have made my decisions a lot easier, and you wouldn't be a sort of a first year uni student at 32.
Which is interesting, and we had a chat about that, and we'll pick that up in a bit and sort of keep pulling on that thread. But I'm sort of interested in the, you know, that concept that you wish you'd put more energy and focus into school at year 11 and 12. And there's something inside me that's saying that comes at a trade-off. Like you want to be an elite sportsman and Do you think there was time to put that more energy into schooling in year 11 and 12 and still achieve what you have in sport to get on the radar?
I think it's definitely a challenge, but I think it's something you've got to do. And I know talking to our recruiters and things like that, that it is something that plays a big part in what clubs are looking for these days. So, I think you can have really good talent, but they look at every aspect of your life these days. And it's probably a little bit easier when I got drafted, and they probably didn't look as much at that. But absolutely now they're looking at the holistic person, and your schooling plays a big part. So I think as an athlete, you learn to time manage. And I reckon my first few years, I really struggled with organisation and time management, which probably stemmed back to not being great at school, but I probably got away with it. And it wasn't until I got found out a few years into my footy career.
It's interesting that the footy clubs are looking for, and it's probably the cliche phrase, but that more well-rounded recruit going into clubs, and they're looking at academic capability, are they? And
yeah, they look at absolutely everything, because they look at it in the way you dedicate yourself to your studies gives them an insight on what you will be like, dedicating yourself to learning how to play AFL. Because once you get to this, there's so much learning, there's so much terminology, there's so many concepts that you need to be able to pick up. And if they don't think you're going to be able to pick up those concepts, or you're going to work hard enough to learn those concepts, there's going to be someone else just as talented as you. And that's what they need. And they look at how good of a person you are. And I know that sounds silly. Everyone thinks they're a good person, but it's not as simple as that. It's how you interact with others. It's all that sort of stuff. All those life skills that you get from you learn at school is things that come into fruition when you're looking at getting drafted.
I'm really pleased to hear that myself, and I know that my knowledge is somewhat based on television and American movies and things like that, but the college system seems to have been that way focused for quite a period.
Yeah, and that the college system's incredible over there, and to be able to go to college and play the sport at almost the highest level, and then still come out of it with a degree of some sort is incredible aspect. And I'm someone that's big for raising the draft age too. I think if someone can be 20 when they're coming, I know that you miss a couple of years of your footy life, but it's amazing how many players that have come in already into a uni course and or doing some sort of trade or whatever it is for them, how much better prepared they are for football, rather than myself, who was, as an 18-year-old kid, was not prepared at all to be an adult. And
yes,
and I definitely found that challenging.
And I was talking to my wife before this, and she said one of the things that would be interesting to explore and talk to you about is that juggling, that all those things that you have going on at the age of 18, and all of a sudden you're thrown into this, not just a profession, but a high profile profession where people are watching you and have expectations. And then, throughout a footy career, people have the study balance and the family balance, and getting that must be extremely exhausting and stressful at a time where most people are going to pubs and living the uni life, I guess.
Absolutely. And I was very, very lucky, and it makes me feel really, really old saying this, but I got drafted before the iPhone existed. So for me, a lot of those stresses, my first 2 years weren't there. The whole system began to change around end of 2008 when the iPhone and social media came out. And it's just exploded since then. And I think that adds to the pressures. I mean, the amount of people that stop you on the street and want to talk about their super coach and whether you're going to get a kick and score well for their super coach is things like that. Is, you can't imagine what it'd be like for a young bloke that might have, even these top draftees that are going to be in people's super coach and people have expectations. Even things like the gambling and stuff, the amount of messages on Instagram and things like that, we get private messages having a go at us because their people's bets didn't get up because we didn't get enough touches in the game, as if you're not already upset that you didn't get enough of the footy.
Yes,
or your side didn't win. You've got people think all those sort of pressures. So you've got to be very, very switched on. You've got to be very, very ready to deal with it. And I find that the first year players are more ready now, and I think the under 18 programs have sort of really done a good job of preparing these kids. But it's still a lot to take in, and I feel for all the young kids that are still learning in this age.
Yeah, and it is pleasing to hear that there's there's so much work going into getting them ready, but I just can't imagine it. So it's a testament to them. And yeah, there's that underbelly of the population that's hoping that they sort of get in the headlines for the wrong reasons, and that's a very real thing, isn't it?
Yes, and it's something we all have to deal with, and unfortunately, the bad stories sell a lot more papers than the good work that the AFL players are doing.
Yeah, no, that's it's too true. So if we go back to school and pick up where we left off there, you wanted to be an NBA player, and at some stage that changed for you, or you changed your mind and the direction that you were going.
Yeah, so for me, I wasn't a massive. I enjoyed watching the footy. Uh, I wasn't a massive person who wanted to play football. I did everything I could to get out of footy. I think in year seven, I started in the year seven Bs, and I was playing back pocket,
Yeah,
which
right.
was probably not really the greatest position for me. But yeah, I really didn't enjoy it. Probably it was. I was very, very lucky. I had one teacher in particular in Rowan Brown, who was deputy principal of the school at the time, who really saw something in me and really helped me and fostered and really pushed me to keep playing even when I didn't. I think he got into a massive fight one day with my dad because my dad wanted me to miss a game so I didn't get injured for my state basketball carnival. And Rowan sort of said, "Well, in short, if he can either play footy or he can leave the school." So that was as much as I hated it at the time, I'm very, very thankful because when it came to my year 12 year, I really started to enjoy what I was doing. And when that season finished, I realised that that was going to be the last game of footy I'd ever play. And, I was ready to go to college and that was what I was doing. But I figured, I was really enjoying it. One, I like the team aspect of footy that's probably a bit different to the culture of basketball. And I was lucky enough to call Oakley Chargers. And I think it was about 4 games to go in the season. And I hadn't done anything with them at all. They've been trying to get me to come down, but I'd said no. And then I rocked up to training on the Thursday night. I think they put me in a marking contest with one of their players. I marked about 18 out of 20.
Yeah, right.
Got named in the side that week and got put full forward. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never played forward in my life. I think I kicked 4 in the first half, and then ended up winning Oakley's first ever premiership with them. So that was sort of where it stemmed from. I just really enjoyed it, and I was a bit over basketball at that point. A bit burnt out as well, which I think comes from the way basketball's run. So for me, it was a new challenge, and I was lucky that when the draft was at my age at that point, they were looking at drafting athletes who they could turn into football players, not necessarily the most skilled football players, because I was not one of them. I was pretty average, to say the least. I'd never really been taught how to kick, so I wasn't overly great at that point. So I was very, very lucky that I had the height and a bit of athleticism about me, and that was what got me drafted.
I think what's interesting there that within like the week of calling the footy club, the Oakley Chargers, you were in a game, and what ultimately led you to making that call was your passion. Your enjoyment and what you really loved doing had actually shifted with time, and that I suspect if I'd said to you in year 9, you're going to finish year 12 and go across to America and play college basketball, you would have said, "You beauty, I'll be there in a second." But in only 3 years, that had changed to be a footy dream.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm really glad I made the decision, but yeah, I went with. In the end, I probably wasn't over comfortable with leaving the country for 4 years, which was the minimum I would probably be leaving for, and I was really enjoying it, and I enjoyed the friendship aspect of football that you didn't necessarily have as much with basketball. You had your core group of friends with basketball, but it was very competitive for spots and things like that. So I really enjoyed the culture of football, and I went with what I was enjoying because I wish I was passionate about other things and had other ideas for jobs to do. But for me, sport has always been a massive passion for me. And I'm just very, very lucky that I followed my passion and I've been really happy and really enjoyed it. It's been tough at times, but it makes the good times well worth it.
And you still enjoy it?
Absolutely, I probably enjoy it more now than I ever have. I think I definitely have a different way of looking at things now, and I think obviously with a family and things like that, you do enjoy getting home and spending time with the family. But when you're at the club, you do feel like you're with your family. And I've been with this footy club for nearly 15 years now, it is like another family for me. So to go in and see all the people and my brothers and sisters at the footy club is great.
And that's what you put that increased enjoyment down, the closer you've got to them over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. And I sort of understand that I'm very, very lucky what I do. I think a lot of people would love to be in my position, and I don't want to take that for granted. I obviously had a couple of lean years about 5 years ago now, and I think going through that and the mental struggles that I went through that has definitely made me a much happier person now, and very grateful for what I've got. So that's probably definitely the last few years is what I put that down to.
That's big of you to call it out and to talk about it. And it's certainly not something that's unique to Todd or to AFL players, but sort of plays out for a lot of people during their careers, that they have these challenging periods. And what was important for you on the footy front during that time? What helped you get through that? Because I imagine a lot would sort of see that as a good time to move away.
Yeah, so early on, it coincided with when I got divorced, and I think for me it was, for a while there, the footy was my sanctuary. So no matter what was going on off field, when I come to the footy, that would be my whole focus, and it would help me forget about my issues. But it probably wasn't until I started to sit down with a psychologist and really have some chat and learn that I can't keep internalizing things, that I can't keep using this footy as a shield, that I need to actually work on myself and work on talking to those around me and seeking help. That after probably a couple of years of doing that, it became a lot easier, and that's probably really helped me in my life completely, I think.
And I think it's the turnaround's been evident to anyone that follows footy, and that last year in particular, I think you had a ripping year, and it's nice to hear that, like everyone else, that coincides with a happier sort of headspace and enjoying what you do.
Yeah, and that's purely what I put it down to. I thoroughly enjoy what I do, and even the off seasons when we're done, I pretty much train every single day because I really enjoy it, and I want to get better. I don't think, even though I am 32 and a lot closer to the end than I am the start, that I want to get better each day, and that enjoyment of what I do is what drives that, because I don't want it to end tomorrow.
And I think it's amazing that I've a few recordings into this show, and it's been absolutely the most consistent theme across everyone we've spoken to, is this sense, or this absolute spoken thing, that they love what they do, and how important that is. And whether it's a professional footballer, doctors, whatever it might be, that love of what you do is obviously a big part of anyone's career.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think the more you enjoy what you do, and you don't necessarily feel like you're going to work, you feel like you're doing something that makes you different. You feel like you're going to see your friends and things like that. So it makes you want to work harder, and if you work hard, it's going to make you achieve bigger and better things in your area.
Yeah, it's a really good takeaway, and something I'll explore towards the end of the episode. But you've spoken earlier, and I said we'd pick it up, but additional studying while playing footy, I know, is a big part of footy clubs' ethos these days, and what they focus on. What have you studied while at North Melbourne?
Yeah, so I think for me, I really struggled with what I wanted to do. I think I didn't really know which direction. I'm not really passionate about anything outside of footy, so it's made it really hard. So I wanted to be a physio when I finished school, so I was doing sports science, and then a few subjects into that, I realised that what I thought a physio did probably wasn't quite as fun as it sounded at the time. So I dropped away from that, and didn't really know what to do. So the club was encouraging me to do a a diploma. So I did through the footy club with about 15 of us did a diploma in business and a diploma in management, which we completed. Wasn't much, but it was something. We then had the opportunity to do an advanced diploma of management, which about 10 of us did this time. So a few blokes dropped off. And then we were very lucky that Ballarat Uni, I think it's now Federation Uni, came to us and said, if you guys can, we can credit you for a lot of your subjects for your diplomas you've done. So three of us ended up doing a Bachelor of Applied Management over a couple of years, which was all online through Federation Uni, which was a good intro into uni, but probably worth coming out with a Bachelor of Applied Management doesn't really necessarily give you a direction that you're headed in. So I then, at that point I was sort of struggling a little bit with my footy, so I stepped away from study and just wanted to focus on myself as a footy player, as a person, as a dad, and work on that and really try and get back to enjoying what I was doing. I eventually got there, and then I sort of didn't know what to do next. I knew I needed to do something. I was, over 30 by this point, and still had no direction. And knowing that footy was not going to last forever, I thought I would force myself into direction. So we got a new careers helper at the footy club, and I had a meeting with him. And the day before, I was stressing my head because I had nothing to talk to him about. And I was lying on. I think I was actually getting a massage with my wife before we had a baby, and I suddenly thought, you know what, I'm going to force myself into a direction. So I looked at doing a Juris Doctor degree, which I'm now a year into, 5 subjects down. Hopefully, I pass the last 2, so I will say I'm 5 subjects down.
Let's go with 5. Yep.
Yep. And so I obviously got a long way to go. I've still got, I think I've got to do 24 units. So I'm only part way into my journey, but it's given me a real excitement about that I do have a direction, or somewhat of a direction, when I finish footy, and I've got a way to support my family.
And have you got in your head an end point to that? What is it that you want to do with effectively your law degree?
Yeah, that's a great question. The great thing about this course I'm finding is that I'm going to get to sample every single different area of law. So I'm sort of keeping a real open mind. I'm very lucky in the position I'm in that I do have a lot of contacts that are in around law. I've got a brother and a sister-in-law who are both lawyers. My best friend's family have 3 or 4 lawyers in their family, and there's quite a few supporters of the club that are there willing to help. But for me, it's just about, I'm really just dabbling in it at the moment, seeing what I really enjoy, if there's an area that I'm really passionate about, and hopefully I can end up there. But I also know that one of our footy operations, so Laura Kane, I think she's pretty much second in charge of the footy club at the moment in the football department, and she's a trained lawyer doing nothing to do with law. So I know that's not necessarily where I'll end up, but at least it gives me something, and it shows the dedication to prospective employers that I've obviously got quite a high profile, high pressure job, and I can still stick it out and do a degree like a law degree. And the Juris Doctor I'm finding is a lot harder than just doing an undergraduate. So it's almost like a master's of law. So it's a very, very challenging course, which I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, it's not a small thing you decided to take on, and when you were having that massage and decided you needed some direction and some idea as to what you want to do, it seems like an amazingly massive undertaking to pick this particular course.
Yeah, and it was all about forcing myself in direction. I've been waiting for that epiphany moment where I've gone, I'm really passionate about this, and this is what I'm going to do with my life. And at 31, I realized that wasn't coming, and that I needed to find a way to force myself into a direction and force myself to do something that's actually going to drive what I do next. Because if best case scenario now, I've got maybe 3 or 4 years left of my footy career, and that's if everything goes absolutely perfect. And I need to have something to fall back on, because unfortunately football is a very, very small part of our lives. We build it up like it's the only part of our lives, but it is only a small aspect. And I'll have 30 odd years of my working life still ahead of me. And I can't just hope to bounce around and find something. I need to force myself to do something.
I think that's awesome. That's really interesting. And maybe in 6 years' time, we'll have you back, and first question will be, what's your job? And you'll talk to us about being a lawyer of the Supreme Court or some such thing.
Oh, that'd be very, very nice. Fingers crossed I can get it done in the next 6 years. Puts the pressure on me now.
That's right. The clock's ticking, Todd. So yeah. All right. Thanks very much for that. I'll now move into. I like to ask three questions consistently across each of the interviews I do. So if you look back now, and I think we sort of touched on this at the start of the discussion anyway, but if you look at your career and the decisions you've made, anything you would do differently time again?
Oh, so I would do many, many things differently. I wish I had the dedication and the understanding of what it took to be an elite athlete and a professional sportsman that I do now. I wish I understood that when I got drafted, because I was definitely not the most dedicated. I didn't have an understanding of how to look after myself, of what you should and shouldn't eat. I had a raft of things I needed, even things as simple as time management and being on time to things was something I really struggled with. So yeah, I think to go back and to change that, and I think to be probably more comfortable with who I am. I think for a while there, when you're young, you're going to a pretty intimidating scene of AFL with grown men. You know, some of them were, you know, you look at Glenn Archer was in his last year when I started, so he's in his mid 30s. He, yeah, you know, he was drinking culture was massive, and I probably didn't quite have an identity and didn't know who I was. So I wish I could have found that earlier, and I think I would have had a better start to my career. But in the end, I look back now and go, every single mistake I made, which was in the thousands, uh, makes me who I am now. And everything I've been through in my life has led to this point. So had I not been, I'm very big on if I had not been through the issues that I had early on, I don't know if I would have been the same person, the same player that I am now. And so I'm very grateful that I was able to learn and that the footy club gave me the opportunity to hang around, because there's a while there where they may not have. So I'm hopeful I've been able to repay them for that. And yeah, I'm very thankful for everything, even though they were mistakes and you changed them. It's made who I am. So that's what I sort of lean on now.
That's right, and we are the sum of all of our errors and all of our good things and everything that came before us. And I think the other element there, and it speaks to what you were talking to earlier, that our careers are relatively long. Our time at school is short, and the moments in which we make each of these decisions are sort of in the moment. They're short term, and there is time to correct things. Whether that's I've picked the wrong career, I've picked the wrong uni course. Another 2 years to correct course there and to find the time to reflect and get those right. As you said, there's another 30 years you've got after football to work and to continue your development and your career. And I think that's a really good takeaway.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, just being able to do the Bachelor of Applied Management, even though didn't necessarily give me a direction, if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have got into the course I got into now. So that was my building block to get into postgraduate study. And so I'm very, very thankful that I actually stuck that course out, even though I didn't particularly want to. I wasn't particularly enjoying it. That is something. And my brother's the same. He wanted to be in hospitality. He did Bachelor of Hospitality, and then he did a Bachelor of Business, and then he was late 20s.
Yeah, the one little bit from there I was keen to pick up and didn't want to lose is just that Bachelor of Applied Management, I think you said it was, and the decision to do that course and to stick it out when you couldn't see what it was leading to, even though it's now proven to be crucial to what you're studying. It was an important building block to that wasn't particularly evident at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think for any person looking to go to uni, I think that what I've learned over the years now is that you might not necessarily be doing the course. You may not, if you did make mistakes and you didn't probably do as well as you wanted to in year 12. That yes, you want to do. Obviously, you want to get in the 90s if you can, but for some of us, that wasn't going to happen. It's not the end of the world. It is. There is any course that you do can be a stepping stone in getting into. If you want to be a doctor and you didn't quite get the marks, well, you can go do something in the science world, and then that can be a stepping stone to get into becoming a doctor. So there's plenty of course, and it's amazing how many people, change their careers and completely overnight, and realize that what they're doing they don't enjoy, or it wasn't quite what they thought it was going to be. And it doesn't mean you have just to slog it out. There are options, and if you are doing something, you're better to finish it, do as well as you can in it, because you never know when that might come in handy down the track.
Absolutely. I love that as a good little lesson. Next one for you is you spoke about the fact that there's, best case, 3-4 years left of footy to go. What's next for you?
Well, I think for me that my focus for the last portion of my career is to get the most out of I can out of my footy career, and I've obviously got a lot of things I still want to achieve in footy, but for me it's getting as much of my course done as I can. That's my complete and utter focus, and I'm obviously trying to think of my game plan, what it's going to be if footy finishes before the course does, whether it's getting involved in coaching or trying to get involved in the media and things like that to help me get through those years that I may have left of my uni degree. And then that's a great question of what's next, because I think it'll be hopefully it'll be finding a job, any job in law, and then just trying to achieve what I can, because I'm someone who is pretty driven, and whatever I'm doing I want to do to the fullest, and I want to do to my best ability. So hopefully I can slowly climb up the rungs of the law and can start to achieve some great things in that too, because I'm pretty passionate about trying to get the best out of myself.
And it must be is it a foreign feeling? Like, all the way through school, you knew you wanted to be a professional athlete, whether it's basketball or football, and you've done that for 15 years, and you're now staring at the doorstep of, I don't actually know what next looks like yet. I'm getting dangerously close to it and haven't got a clear lens as to what I'm doing. Is that a foreign feeling for you?
Absolutely, and I've got a lot of friends who have finished up in footy, and it's very, very daunting. I think as athletes, our identity is the sport that we play, and as soon as that goes, you almost feel like you lose a piece of your identity, even though it's not necessarily the case. So it is a scary feeling, and I think that doing this, what this course helps me with, is it sort of eases that feeling. I sort of know that I am doing everything I can for that next step. But I'm really looking forward to, funnily enough, to hopefully finding a job that is consistent, that you're not necessarily looking over your back every second, and that you're not going to, that you can sort of, I can plan on being in that area for 30 years if I choose. Whereas being in a footy environment, it is very much, you don't know when your last contract's coming. You don't know when that injury that could end it all is coming. So I think hopefully I'm looking forward to the ability to have a bit of certainty in my life, because when you're playing footy, it's everything but certain what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I love that. I really like it. Very last one for you, and it's a bit of a cliche, but for our listeners, for the people sitting at home or on their way to school or uni at the moment, what's the one piece of advice you'd bestow on them?
Oh, I think for me, it's just do the best at what you're doing right now. What's going to happen in the future is going to happen, and to an extent, you don't have a complete control over that. But if you want to be an elite athlete, what you do now, what you do tomorrow is the biggest and most important aspect of your life. Because if you think that you're going to be an elite athlete and you don't need to do well in your school, well, I'm telling you now, it's not going to be overly helpful for you, because you could easily bounce in and bounce out. And I've seen plenty of very, very talented athletes do that. So the best thing you can do is try and work out who you are as a person, and try different things and get involved in different things, and see what you enjoy. Because being an athlete is a great career, but it's also not one that you can necessarily count on, because there's a lot of extraneous variables that can change that.
Yeah, I love it. And just that sense of whatever you're doing today, do it the best you can. Make it count, I guess.
Yeah, we've got a saying at the footy club now is be better than yesterday, and that's how I sort of try. And it's fun. The new coach has brought it in, but it's probably something I've lived by for 2 or 3 years now. Is that everything I do is about trying to be better than yesterday, and trying to get better, and that's what drives me, and it seems to work quite well for me.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight. Really enjoyed the chat. It's been great catching up. We haven't actually spoken for a long time since school days. So it's I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a great insight to your journey so far and what lies ahead of you. As I said at the outset, that was a conversation I really enjoyed, and I wanted to thank you for joining us. I hope you learnt as much as I did about the increasingly important role academics plays for AFL players, not only leading into selection, but during their careers. What I really loved about this chat was the academic journey Todd has been on. How, like the rest of us, it has taken time to identify what it is he wants to do with the rest of his life. For him, the rest of his life starts after a successful AFL career. However, he has been on a journey of working towards that. I find that just truly fascinating and humbling to hear. I'd like to thank you once again for joining this episode of Careers Night. I really enjoyed the opportunity to open up these conversations for you. And if you feel like you have someone in your life, a friend, family, even a foe, who you feel will get something out of these episodes, I do ask that you share it with them. I honestly feel the stories that we discuss here are valuable to students and the next generation of workers, and I'd love the opportunity to have them heard by more and more people. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, my name's Chris Potts, and this has been Careers Night.